Hi, my name is Grant Dana, and today I want to talk to you about the effect of video games on mental health. Now, as someone who's played video games for most of their life, I'm sure many of you can relate to this phrase, put those video games down, they're bad for you. As someone who's played them for most of their life, as I said, it's become a very familiar phrase to me. But video games and the community around them have actually been accused of a lot of horrible things. For instance, they've been accused of being misogynistic, racist, non-inclusive towards people of different races and genders. They've also been accused of being violent, that the violence depicted in the video games themselves is too graphic, and that the people who play these video games become numb to the real world, and that they don't care about the real world violence around them. Now, the video game community defends against this by saying that we don't care who comes into our community. We don't care who plays video games. And also pointing out that there are other things in modern culture, such as violent TV and violent movies, that are just as bad, if not worse, than violent video games, yet for some reason get a free pass, while video games get a bunch of blame and hate aimed at them. Now, I am in full agreement with the video game community here. As someone who's played video games for the majority of his life, I can safely say, both from personal experience and from the data we're about to go over, that video games can be a positive effect on mental health for everybody who plays them. And when I say everybody, I do mean everybody. Video games are an extremely vast topic and a very, very diverse source of media. There are types of games for everybody who wants to play them. For instance, women who have been said to not be accepted in the community actually make up the majority of the Match 3 and Family Farm simulation games, as stated by Yu in his 2018 study. And beyond that, in terms of races not being accepted, as shown by the Pew Research Center in 2020, all races, a significant portion of all adults in all races play video games. Whites making up about 41%, blacks making up about 44%, and Hispanics making about 47% of each of their population who play video games. As we can see from this, despite the dogma and the myth that video games community is not inclusive towards people of other races and genders, that's patently false once you look at the information. And on the topic of numbers, 164 million is a really large number. That's the amount of Americans that play video games. Now, if you're one of those people who believe the myth that video games make people violent, that may be a really troubling number for you. But, as shown by Joseph Hilgard in his 2009 study, that's not true. Video games, in fact, do not make people more violent. They do not make people more aggressive. They do not make them more accepting of violence. In fact, in another 2009 study, it's shown that it's quite the opposite. That when someone plays a preferred video game for a period of time, it actually decreases their level of mental stress and increases their mood, improves it. Now, I don't think I need to tell you that when someone is stressed out and unhappy, that they're more likely to do bad things like cause violence. So, despite the myth surrounding video games, we can actually see that's the opposite. That playing video games actually makes you happier and less stressed, and thus less likely to cause violence. So, in conclusion, violent video, TV and movies do not cause users to become violent. That's culturally accepted. And as we can see from the data presented here today, video games are much the same. They actually increase people's mood and make them feel better, and do not make them more violent. And beyond that, we can also see that the older generations will always try to demonize the newer generation's interests. We can see in the 1980s, for instance, when the A-Team came out, which was an extremely tame movie and TV show in terms of violence by modern standards, but was blasted by the older generation of the time as being too violent for the younger generation. We also see that millions upon millions of Americans see video games as their preferred way to relax and unwind, potentially after a bad day at work or a really hard work day at work. That you just come home, play video games, your mood improves, your stress goes down, and you get to relax for a while. So, putting this all together, that video games do not cause people to become more violent, that video games are actually positive for mental health and help people relax, and that video games are an inclusive community that everybody is welcome in, that everybody can play in. I can safely say, without a shadow of a doubt, video games can have a positive effect on mental health for everybody who plays them. And that's all.